Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. We're continuing in the Mishnah Yomi for the 18th day of the Omer. We are in the first parak of Sheviit, Mishnah 5 and 6. Today, Mishnah Hey continues talking about 3 trees in one area of land. This is a 50 by 50 amot square called a beit seah because we plant a seah of grain seeds in that same amount of area. So if you have 3 full-grown trees there that make a minimum amount of figs if they're fig trees, or they're big enough and mature enough to do so if they're not fig trees, even barren trees, then you are allowed to keep plowing there Erev Sheviit up until a certain time limit, Machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, but you can plow there Erev Sheviit, even though plowing is typically done as a preparation for the next season, for the planting. It doesn't look like you're plowing in preparation for Sheviit, because it's for the benefit of the trees that are already there, not really to prepare the ground to plant grain. So Mishnah Hay continues, Shlosha ilanot shel shlosha anashim. These 3 trees belong to 3 different people. Hare elu mitztarfin, they combine. So you don't have to have all the trees owned by one person. If they are individually owned by separate parties, that's okay. V'chorshin kol be'etzeh b'vishilan. So you can plow the entire area for the needs of these trees, even with different owners. Kamei hay benehem. And how much is in between these trees? What this means is what's the minimal amount of spacing for trees, because if they're too dense, or mostly if you plant the trees too close together, then what's going to happen is one will be taking resources from the other and won't grow so well, and the owner will come to rip out some of the trees and thin it out so they grow better. So if these 3 trees are too close together, then one of them is eventually going to be taken out so the other ones can grow more properly. So what's the minimum spacing between them? We've seen the maximum 3 in a 50 by 50 amot area. It's wide enough in between trees so that the cattle, the ox that's pulling your tools and your wagon and whatever you're using for your agricultural work can go with its kelov, meaning with the yoke, the plowing equipment, and whatever is on this ox. It's 4 amot, Rabosai. And if you recall from Kilayim, when he talks about Kilai HaKerem, the Kilayim of the vineyard, that planting a vineyard, and that had its own halachic definition, requires a 4 amot space as a buffer zone for the what's called avodas hakerem, the workspace around the kerem, which is also 4 amot. So we see this 4 amot is used as a buffer or a workspace as the minimum size for such a thing, so you can get your men and your equipment and your oxen in there to do your plowing and do your work. So if you do not have this 4 amot minimum between trees, then what's going to happen is it will affect their growth and you'll come to rip one out. So these 3 trees minimum, we saw yesterday, could be even 9, even 10 or more trees. If you don't have that minimum spacing, it doesn't count as 3 trees because one of them is a goner. Moving on to Mishnah Vav, Eser Netiot, the famous halacha l'Moshe Sinai of the 10 saplings. And these 10 saplings are mefuzar b'tuch beit seah. They're scattered around the beit seah. Chorshin kol beit seah bishvilan. You can plow the entire beit seah bishvilan ad Rosh Hashanah, even until Rosh Hashanah. Now recall that the Machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel about Aretzeres until it's good for the trees, that was called Mishnah Rishona. That was the original version. That was when we had a Beis HaMikdash. Rabban Gamliel in Yavna decreed that we don't have to follow that without a Beis HaMikdash. God willing, we will follow that again with a Beis HaMikdash. But even in those times, if it was 10 saplings, Rabosai, sapling is not an elon. An elon is grown up, and a tia, netiot is the saplings, the small ones. They need more TLC. They need more plowing to let the water get into the roots and nurture them so they can grow deep roots into the rocky ground, and they can get a firm grip on the ground and start to grow. So even according to Mishnah Rishona, the first version, we had the Beis HaMikdash, you could still plow the entire field, the entire Beit Seah for the needs of the 10 saplings up until Rosh Hashanah, Erev Shviis. If they were all in a row, umukafos atara, or they were surrounded by a crown, meaning they were all fenced in, they were all like in their own little plot. They weren't scattered throughout the Beit Seah, but they were in one little grove or one little corner. You can't plow for them except what is needed. That would be sort of the work area around them. And this is something important to keep in mind, Rabotai, about parenting, is that our netiot, our children, they need a little more TLC. They need a little more patience, a little more plowing. Sometimes you need to repeat a lesson many times for it to sink in and get to the roots. And that's something this Mishnah hints to as well. Shkoyach.